Hey guys, Disler Magic here, and it's time to talk about the real problem with Kaladesh. Well, actually, this is a long history of problems, and there just is no avoiding it. There's no way to design around this without making Magic incredibly boring. I'm, of course, talking about self-contained mechanics, everybody's favorite. That, of course, refers to a mechanic that really only works in the set that it's in. We're talking not even in the standard rotation, just in the set that it's in. You're lucky if it's even the block that it's in. Now, the number one complaint I hear all the time as soon as they announce something new, like, we're going to focus on in this video, energy and vehicles. Whenever they announce something new like that, when the very first spoiler cards come out, people say, oh, well, that won't work in Modern because it only works with itself. Absolutely true, very valid point. Although I will say that Wizards has claimed, and they are not being 100% honest here, they have claimed that they design cards for Standard and screw Modern. They do not even consider Modern when they're designing cards, which they've contradicted themselves in statements from the staff. But in general, that is true. And if you think about it, yeah, why would they say, oh, well, we want to print this in Standard, we think it'll be really cool, oh, but Modern players won't get any use out of it, so we're going to print something more Modern-oriented. No, they don't do that. Why would they do that? In general, when it comes to Modern players, the less change the better. Modern players hate change. Let's look at the last two changes. One, a shakeup in the Tier 1 decks. The new Tier 1 deck was Eldrazi, and everybody lost their damn minds. Number two, they banned Splinter Twin. Everybody lost their damn minds. So as soon as there's a shakeup in the Tier 1 or Tier 2 decks, everybody just goes berserk because, oh no, my precious $1,000 deck might not be as good and I might not be able to auto-win because I'm a pay-to-win jackass. Seriously, net deckers, they're just comically selfish. Now, the first point is kind of valid. Yeah, you can't really use energy in Modern because everything interacting with energy is in Kaladesh, and that's that. It's not completely true, but it's mostly true. I would call this about an 80 to 90% self-contained mechanic. And then vehicles, you could put them in a Modern deck. I don't know why you would. There's really no logical reason. I mean, if you're going to go with weird creature types and weird attack patterns, Bestow is way better at that. Way safer, way more durable. But when it comes right down to it, who cares? They designed for Standard. They want to make a new thing in Standard, and so they did, and it doesn't affect Modern. Well, complaining that a Standard product isn't good for Modern when it was designed for Standard and not Modern is pretty dumb. I mean, yeah, if a couple cards did work in Modern, it would drive up the price, it would drive up the value, it would sell more boosters, it would honestly make Standard more expensive, so there's that. But in general, I mean, I can kind of dismiss that one as a little bit, asking too much. The real problem with self-contained mechanics is that they get solved really quickly, and that's Wizards' term, solved. They've been using it forever. The big solving thing is that they said before the internet, before net decking was a thing, it would take people longer to, quote, solve, Standard, where people couldn't collaborate as much and they'd have to slowly tweak their deck, and every week people would come back to F&M with a slightly more powerful version of their deck, or they would just rethink it completely. These days, on the day of the pre-release, when all the spoilers are out, people probably have decks that are 80 to 90% there. They are almost the most powerful decks that can be built. Now, there is no way to measure that, and it's still kind of rock, paper, scissors-y, so there is no such thing as the strongest deck. But it's a group. It's kind of like a soft group without a boundary. So when it comes to solving Standard, well, one of the best ways to do it is to take one of the new mechanics and just solve that. What is the absolute best energy creatures, energy cards, and different things you can do with energy to make the ideal energy deck? So if all you have to look at is, how many cards would that be? My sources tell me 47 cards. So once you've narrowed it down based on color, it's probably closer to like 10 cards, if that. Obviously, it would probably be 2 color or more, though, so we'll just say 20. So you got 20 cards to look at and just say, oh, what's the strongest combination between these 20 cards? I mean, that's the easiest thing in the world. It's all the same thing as Origins. What's the strongest Elves deck? Some Elves are just logically more powerful and more interactive, more combo-inducing than others, and that deck was solved in, minutes. In fact, I think the Elves intro pack was, 85% there as far as the top Elves deck. Turned out that deck sucked and everybody beat it, but it was good on, day one. Now, elves isn't exactly a mechanic, but it kind of was. There's always themes, mechanics, subtypes, whatever, tribal, whatever you want to call it. Now let's go to vehicles. It's the same thing. I mean, there are almost no vehicles. It's unbelievable how few there are. Here, let's see if I can solve the best vehicles deck. Let's see. Bomat Bazaar Barge is a piece of crap. Oval Chase Drakester is a piece of crap. Smuggler's Copter is absolutely insane. OP as balls and broken. I hope they ban it. And the big old Menace Choo Choo is pretty good. I mean, 8 for crew 4, only costs 5. That's pretty nuts. Go through the rest of the vehicles, see which ones obviously suck and are just fillers, and see which ones were actually intended to really support the mechanic, and then build around it. Look for what's the best cards, what's the best colors that reference vehicles. And I think it's like red, I don't remember. This may come as a shock to you, but I don't follow the top net decks. I don't know what's in them. I don't know really what won the tournament because I don't care. I just have no interest in that. You know what deck and what person probably won every single tournament? Whoever cheated the best without getting caught. So can't really call them the best decks, can you? From what I heard secondhand and just glimpsing at certain deck lists or whatever, because I honestly don't care, but it's hard to avoid. One tournament went from vehicle aggro to super hyper blue-white control, which is exactly what I said would happen. So yeah, people think they have the hottest deck solved at one tournament, and then at the next one it's a little bit more settled. So as time goes on, okay, it can progress. It can take people a couple weeks to, quote, solve standard and find the most powerful decks. But the whole self-contained mechanic thing isn't helping, because holy crap does that make it easy. This has been the pattern every time there was a super self-contained type of thing. Let's go back to Theros, which I actually liked. I mean, whatever. It was Devotion. Now, just being a card that was a permanent on the battlefield that had color in its cost, boom, it's a Devotion mechanic card. But really you need cards that reference Devotion. So yes, it was, not completely self-contained, but the actual mechanic itself was. Now, if I recall, they referenced it in all 3 of the sets within the Theros block, but other than that, you're thinking, okay, what are the absolute best Devotion cards, and what are the ones where they printed the word Devotion because that's what they're doing, but the card is completely worthless. So you take 2/3 or more of the Devotion cards, throw them out because they're complete and utter unplayable garbage, and then you're left with the same cards that everybody else plays with. Master of Waves, he was insane. I totally don't remember what the rest were. I think a lot of the rest were green. So the self-contained mechanics just make such a small card pool, it's insane. I mean, it's just so easy to build the ideal deck. They might as well just not even print the other cards that are clearly not better. And that's the problem. It basically writes the deck for you. It takes all the creativity out of it. Everybody's running the same deck, and it just doesn't work. Now, the solution to this is very obvious. Make a super open-ended, not so self-contained mechanic. And the best one I can think of, oh boy, probably Protection from Colors. I don't know if you could even really call that a mechanic because it actually was more of a semi-evergreen ability according to Wizards. I disagree, it wasn't printed enough, but that's how they described it. So Protection from Colors, you can throw that in anything. You could throw in 1, you could throw in 5. It's a cool mechanic, it's a cool idea, but it wasn't block specific and it wasn't unique. So maybe not the best example. Maybe the other best I could think of is really Bestowing and Constellation. I mean, if you put in a bestow creature and you put in just 1 because it's good, like Night Howler, it works with, 9 other cards. You aren't really locked down because it's just a basic way to use creatures and attack and protect them. Now, Constellation, okay, you're still locked down to cards that have Constellation written on them, but in Modern especially, you could use any other enchantment with it. So the majority of the deck was built out of just whatever enchantment you wanted to use. Could be an enchantment creature, could be a regular enchantment, could be an aura, doesn't really matter. I thought that was pretty brilliant. I mean, it's still a little locked down because some of the cards have to come from, what was it, Journey to Nyx or whatever had Constellation in it. And obviously there are incredibly powerful Constellation cards and then incredibly pointless ones. But it was pretty open-ended as far as, how many total cards have the word enchantment on them as a subtype. A lot. But you come back to vehicles and energy. I mean, what else uses vehicles? I mean, you could say, any creature could crew it. Okay, I guess. If you just stick to crewing, it's going to suck, though. You need something that says, oh, whenever you crew a vehicle, it gets +2/+2 in trample or something like that. Because, that's just so much better than running any other creature. It supports vehicles. It's just going to be better. You go to energy, well, geez, the cards that use energy are from Kaladesh, and the cards that generate energy are from Kaladesh. Nothing else works with them at all. The best you could do is like that thing that replicates all counters, or like doubling season, and that's about it, really. So the top energy decks are probably out right now because there's, like I said, 47 cards that reference energy in Kaladesh. That's it. Even if you're not going to say the best overall deck, you just say, I want to build the best blue energy deck. Well, you're probably not going to put in certain cards, and you probably are going to put in certain other cards because they're just better or worse. Now let's quickly jump back to the alternative. Okay, so they make a really super open-ended thing like Devotion or Constellation or Bestow. Okay, now you could cherry pick a couple real particular ones with that mechanic, but the entire rest of the deck wouldn't even have to be from, we'll say Kaladesh. It could be from any of the other sets, and you could build all kinds of creative stuff with a whole bunch of different combinations. And like I said with Bestow, you can throw that right into a modern deck. It's one tiny step down from hexproof because if you bestow a creature, they have to kill the host first and then the creature again. Okay, so it's closer to Persist or Undying, but whatever. So I think in the future, they should probably stop coming up with really out of left field stuff. I mean, in general, I like it. I like really, really, really new concepts. Not just, oh, now we're going to count the mana cost and call it Devotion. Yay, we made a new thing. Or Menace, which there seriously was Menace before Menace. They just spelled it out. That wasn't even a real thing. So I like weird, exotic, wacky stuff because it's just something I haven't played with before and I want to try it. As soon as I saw energy, I wanted to try it. So I think from like a fun standpoint, okay. But from a like logical standpoint, I mean, the cards are pointless in Modern. That isn't helping anybody. And they're just so easily solvable. And there's only really 1 or 2 or 3 ways to put together energy decks to be the best. In that way, it just doesn't work, and I think they should stick to super open-ended stuff. They could get really, really creative with open-ended stuff. Like Bestow, stacking 2 creatures on top of each other, that's pretty left field. I mean, that's a pretty wacky idea. Now, you could compare it to stuff like Emerge, which pretty much already existed. I mean, some of this says when this demon enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice a creature. That basically is Emerge. I mean, they didn't really invent anything. Wizards clearly does not have to get that dull and just unbelievably not unique at all with their mechanics, but they don't have to make energy where it's like a whole new concept of the game, and as soon as it's out of standard, nobody's going to touch it. The middle ground is right where they want to be, and I would say out of the last, 20 sets, they've done a pretty good job of not making self-contained nonsense. It pretty much was just vehicles and energy that really stood out as just their own thing, and that's that. Now, there's one more thing I want to add, and it's the fact that if you wanted to play an energy deck, you're pretty much going to Kaladesh. Like, you might as well not even put other cards in your deck unless you really need a unique kind of kill spell or bounce or something from another set. So it's a very clever, kind of shady sales tactic. I mean, nobody likes it when a new set comes out and people cherry pick like 2 cards out of it and then just disregard the rest and keep playing the same decks they were playing. I don't like that. Apparently people do like that because, 6 month to 1 year rotation, everybody's like, yeah, you can play the same deck for 2 years. Great. Nobody wants you to do that. So I do think that these self-contained things, they do force people to change up their deck, but it's really just to sell packs. I mean, it's like if you want to play energy, you better get your hands on a lot of Kaladesh cards. If you want to play vehicles, you better ditch all your BFZ, ditch your OGW, don't even use those cards, and switch over to the Kaladesh mechanic. But see, it's clever from a sales standpoint, but when it backfires spectacularly. Remember Journey to Nyx and Born of the Gods? Nobody wanted them. Their mechanics people were like, oh, I like my other deck more, thanks. Bye-bye. When Origins and their Elves came out, I sure hope the Elves deck was in Origins, so I'm going to hear about it. I'm pretty sure they were. People played it for like 10 minutes and then realized, all the mechanics from Origins are kind of snoozy. All the deck archetypes and tribals are kind of boring. I mean, they're neat, they're interesting, I want to try them, but oh, that's right, my 3-color frickin' Esper control deck stomps the living balls off of the Elves. So if somebody looks at the new set and says, I mean, I'll take the kill card, I'll take the board wipe, but I don't want to touch the new mechanic because the other mechanics before it are more powerful, that's bad. That's really bad for sales. That's one of the worst things that can happen. People, for the most part, just ignored Constellation. I just did not see Constellation decks at the tournaments. I didn't see them at the local level. So if Constellation fails, if Energy failed, if Vehicles failed, the whole set fails. The whole set's worth nothing after 2 weeks. So that is the third and possibly most important reason that Wizards need to stop printing these little mechanics that only work with themselves and they're in their own little bubble. So what do you guys think? Am I completely wrong about this? Do you absolutely love the self-contained mechanics because it's just a new deck, you can build it and get it over with? You're already going to buy 3 boxes, so you might as well jump on the new mechanic? Or are you also sick of stuff where, oh, here's the best energy deck, here's the best vehicle deck, the end? I think y'all know I wasn't a fan of the here's what you should build, have fun decks in Eldritch Moon and SOI. It was like, oh, you're either building vampires, werewolves, spirits, humans, or whatever the hell else the other one was. I didn't like that. I mean, there was only like freaking 14 werewolf cards. So it's like, if you're going to build a werewolf deck, it's already built for you. Wizards already did all the work. You might as well have built it as like an intro pack. Or I should say, bought it as an intro pack. I don't like that, and I don't like when they do the same thing with energy. So let me know what you think down in the comment section, and I will see you guys next video.